Today we're going to talk about basic mill safety and operation. When working on the machine, I always want to use proper PPE. So this usually is steel toe boots, safety glasses, and earplugs. On my milling machine, I have my cutter rotating while my workpiece moves into the cutter. I have 3 axes. I have my X, or side to side. I have my Y, or towards and away. And I have my Z, which moves up and down. I also have a quill, like a drill press, to go up and down in my depth as well. If I ever need to shut the mill down quickly, I have a brake on the side here. So if I have this spinning and I ever need to stop it, I shut it off here and pull the brake to shut off the spindle. These cutting tools can spin at thousands of RPM, so I want to ensure that I'm never touching or near the cutter. I want to keep my hands, any hoodie sleeves, any long sleeves away from the rotating equipment. So to operate my mill, there's a couple things I need to keep in mind. The first is I have a power on and off switch here. So if I turn it to the 1, it spins in one direction. If I spin it to the 2, it spins in another direction. I also have my RPMs right here, okay? So if your mill has a variable speed, which most of them do, I need to have my spindle rotating while I change the speed. If I crank on this while it's off, I stretch out the belt and my pulleys lose their position and I will lose the accuracy of my RPM. On the side, I also have a high and a low gear. This translates on my front part of my mill here, where I have a high gear, which is my inside ring, and I have a low gear, which is my outside ring. So right now, I'm in high gear. So when I'm reading my RPM, I'm looking at this inside ring here. So if I look, my RPM is at about 2,800. If I want to slow it down, I turn this on, and then I can just crank this handle to adjust my speed, and you can hear it spinning slower. One thing I want to keep in mind is that if I spin it on the 1 here, and I put it on the 2 here, this changes the direction of the rotation of my milling machine. So if we look at the spindle here, I'm going to draw an arrow spinning clockwise. Most of the time with any of our cutters, we want our spindle running in the clockwise direction. So I'm going to turn this on and I'm going to slow the RPM down so you are able to see it. So if I turn this to the 1, watch the direction of the spindle. So as you can see, this is spinning in a clockwise direction. If I turn this to the 2, it's spinning backwards. So I need to be mindful of which direction this is spinning and verify that before I start. Now, if I change this and put it into low gear, sometimes if it's not snapping into place, I might need to give it a rotation by hand. But if I watch this now, if I go to 1, it's spinning counterclockwise. If I go 2, it's spinning clockwise. So I need to be mindful if I'm in high or low gear on which direction my spindle is spinning. Now to install a cutting tool or a holder into my mill, what I use is the drawbar up top. So how this works is on my cutting tools or holders, I have a threaded hole in the end here. The end of my bolt is a threaded rod. So this slides into here and it gets threaded on. And as you can see, there's a taper right here. So what happens as I'm tightening this, it's pulling my cutter onto the taper and it's securing itself and centering itself on this taper. I also have a key running down the middle here. On the inside of the spindle, I can feel that there's a key in here as well. So I need to make sure that these line up when I put it in and tighten the top of it. So I'm going to install this milling cutter now. So as you can see, I just installed the cutter. I have a hammer here with a hex on the top to tighten my my drawbar down. So I'm just gonna hold the brake here and I'm gonna give that a tighten there. I wanna be mindful that I never ever leave that hammer on, because if I turn my spindle on, it's gonna spin around and hit my motor. So now that I have my cutter in, I can do some machining. Again, the safety components, I never want to touch that rotating cutter. I want to ensure that my RPM is set correctly. I want to make sure my workpiece is held nice and secure. And I want to know what each one of these hand levers do. So again, I have a side-to-side feed, or my X movement here. I have an up and down, or my Z here, and I have my Y towards and away here. I can also adjust my quill on my machine. As you can see here, somebody has crashed the milling cutter into the machine. I work at an educational institution, so this is pretty common. We want to be really mindful that we don't damage this vise. Thanks for watching.